Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Ajit Korgaokar, and my colleague is Dr. Stuart Currie. We're very fortunate to be part of this conference, the TGfU 40th conference, and we're certainly honored to be here. Our presentation today is going to be on tactical periodization. And what we're going to cover, some of the key objectives. We're going to look at tactical periodization. We'll look at the phases of the game. We'll look at the game model. This is a key component to tactical periodization. And then we'll look at some of the methods and principles in addition to what a weekly tactical periodization model looks like. And then we'll relate this to a games-based approach. So tactical periodization was developed by Vitor Frade. He's considered the father of tactical periodization. He was a lecturer at the Sports University of Porto. And this has been used by some very well-known football managers, such as Pep Guardiola, Jose Mourinho, Brendan Rodgers, Eddie Jones in rugby, not just in football. The main concept around tactical periodization is the principles of play. The principles of play are always the key component in terms of what make up the game model. And we can see that it's very similar to what we have seen in the research from the games-based approach. Within this concept, with all training sessions and all games, the tactical, the technical, the physical, and the cognitive parts of the game are always included. This is unlike what we've seen in the traditional model that tends to be more of a technical focused approach when it comes to skill acquisition and learning. And so the key concept or objective is ensuring that the four main moments of the game or the four phases of the game are always part of any type of training session. And that would be attacking, defending, and then transitioning from attacking to defending, and defending from defending to attacking. So the four phases, as you can see here, these make up the key moments of the game. And this is very similar to what we see in the games-based approach, where if we're going to look at all four phases and every one single phase must be part of every training session, we're always going to have those four components: the technical, the tactical, the physical, and the cognitive. And within this situation, we're always going to have some type of randomness from variable conditions. And this is very similar to what we see in the games-based approach. So the game model, this is what the coach, this is what the manager dictates. This is how their style of play, how they want to play. This is not necessarily like a system of play. Any system of play can be used within the game model, whether it be a 4-4-2, whether it be a 4-3-2-1 or a 3-4-3, any system of play. The game model is how that coach wants to play. And that might be, for example, the manager may decide he wants to be a very high pressing team. And so all of the training sessions, all of the structural principles of play within the training process are all modeled based upon the game model. And within this concept, there are main principles, and the main principles are the team action. So it might be the entire team. Then there are sub-principles, so it's broken down into the lines. It might be a midfield unit or a front unit, or it might be a back unit and a midfield unit, or just the back unit. And then there are sub-principles, which are more the individual actions. Okay, and all these are, again, are part of the different phases of the game. But within the sub principles, for example, there might be a left side centre back working with a left back, or two centre backs working together. But again, all around the main four phases of the game. So the main objective is using this approach is to develop a very clear game model. The concept being that if there's a clear game model that all the players understand, then there's less uncertainty, which if there's less uncertainty, then that can provide maybe more opportunity for creativity. And we know in the game of football, there's a lot of randomness and unpredictability. The goal here is to reduce some of that. This slide here really talks about this concept within the tactical periodization model called fractality. And as it says there, it's really about breaking down all parts of the training process so they mimic, and they're miniature copies that are representative of the game model. You can see here on the side, these triangles, you have the big triangle, which you could argue are your main principles. And then the small triangles, okay, they become smaller and smaller. And that's where you get down into your sub-principles and your sub-principles. They are all triangles, but some are smaller representations and others are larger representations. And this is the theory behind tactical periodization, so that players can, again, working within the 4 phases of the game, are able to incorporate all the aspects of the game: the technical, the tactical, the physical, the psychological, and the cognitive. And that's very similar to what we see in a game environment. And this puts players under pressure when they're mimicking, if you like, the real game. Again, very similar to what we've seen in a games-based approach. The 4 levels of the fractal system, okay, as you can see here, we've got the game. All training has got to be relevant to one of the phases, but probably something I want to point out is that specificity is a key component to tactical periodization. And specificity, okay, everything revolves around the specificity component in terms of whether you're attacking, whether you're defending, whether you're working on main principles, sub-principles, okay? What we're looking at is everything around being very specific to the game model and the game. And this is what provides greater transfer for players when it comes to the training session. This is an example of a principle of play, and this is transitioning from attacking to defending. We have our main principles, sub-principles, and sub-principles. So for example, the ball may have just turned over, and if we have a game model that's a high press, straight away, players have got to press the ball, cut down spaces, cut off passing lanes. And this is where we might see, for example, the sub-principle might be the front unit working with another unit, a midfield unit, and then the entire units, which is the entire team. And then we look at the role of a group of players, and then we look at the role of individual players. And that might be changing the mental attitude from attacking to defending or communicating, so that eventually all 11 players are on the same page when it comes to pressing and trying to win the ball back higher up the field. Lastly, this is what a weekly periodization model looks like. You can see it's broken down into these 3 phases of recovery: tactical learning and activation. And if you look at the differences here, not all the same principles are covered in the same day. For example, Wednesday may be main principles and sub-principles. And this is where you may see bigger numbers and more complexity. For example, maybe a 9v9 or 10v10 or even 11v11. But it might be sub-principles, maybe a back unit working with a midfield unit. And then you can see on one of the other tactical learning days, like a Tuesday, we see just sub-principles and sub-principles. So it may be a back unit working in that particular situation. Or again, it may be just the 2 centre-backs working on, and that covers more of the sub-principles. So this is what a model looks like. So there's not an overload during the week in terms of the information given to the players. Thank you. These are the references. If you have any questions, please send them to myself. Dr. Currie and I can always be contacted through social media as well. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be a part of this conference.